Muzan has created countless demons that have plagued the human world for hundreds of years. But among those countless demons, there are a few elite demons who were created to delete the Demon Slayer core from existence. Starting with number 8, we have Upper Moon 6 Kaigaku Inadama. Everyone knows him as the senior student of the former Thunder Hashira Jigoro, but what people don't know is that he also remained under Gyome's care before Gyome joined the Demon Slayers. Now, the reason this information is not well known is it was mentioned in the extras of Volume 17, so you're excused from forgetting that. Kaigaku used to live under Gyome's care at a temple along with 8 other kids. Lots of demons used to roam around that area. So to make sure they don't become a dinner for the demons, Gyome would burn wisteria incense every night to keep the demons away. And because demons are active during the night, every child was supposed to come before evening. In chapter 135, we find out that one evening, Kaigaku broke that rule and didn't return before evening. As a result, he got captured by a demon. To save his life, Kaigaku suggested the demon leave him alone and instead eat Gyome and the rest of the kids. Kaigaku came back to the temple and put out all the wisteria incense, which allowed the demon to kill 7 children without any problem. If it wasn't for Gyome's indomitable will that punched the demon to death, the last kid would have gotten killed as well. Now, stealing from the temple wasn't the only disgusting thing Kaigaku did. He was like this his whole life. Kaigaku believed that as long as he was alive, he would succeed in life. This means that he would even give up his humanity in order to save his life. After becoming a demon slayer and learning the thunder breathing under Jigoro, Kaigaku did something that dirtied the name of thunder breathing. Despite being the most goated student of Jigoro, Kaigaku became a demon at the hands of Upper Moon 1 to save his pathetic life once again. Jigoro, who blamed himself for this incident, committed seppuku after hearing about Kaigaku's actions. And it doesn't stop here. When he meets Zenitsu as the Upper Moon 6, Kaigaku accuses Jigoro of favoring Zenitsu over him. We all know that's a big fat lie. Jigoro loved both of his students equally and would often tell Zenitsu to become like Kaigaku. Instead of being ashamed, Kaigaku was actually happy and believed that Jigoro died for his sins of not choosing him as the only successor. This attitude continues throughout the fight. He mocks Zenitsu for being trash and believes that Zenitsu is a gutless and cowardly human being. However, Kaigaku is all bark, no bite. Before you guys come at me in the comments, I'm aware he knows 5 forms of thunder breathings that Zenitsu can only dream of pulling off, but he cannot perform the first form of breathing. The reason it matters is the first form of thunder breathing is the foundation of all the 5 forms of thunder breathing, which is precisely the reason that Zenitsu, who only knew the first form, was able to create a 7th form of thunder breathing to slice off Kaigaku's neck. It was so shocking that Kaigaku thought Jigoro played favorites and didn't teach him the 7th form. Even during his last moments, Kaigaku blamed other people for his failure. The result? He wasn't able to solo a non-Hashira even though he was an Upper Moon 6. But the fact that he couldn't kill Zenitsu speaks a lot about his abilities. Not only he was a disgrace to thunder breathing, but he was also a disgrace to position of Upper Moon 6, which was previously held by number 7, Daki and Gyutaro. The 2 siblings, Daki and Gyutaro, both shared the position of Upper Moon 6 in order to blend into the human society. Daki worked as a courtesan in the Yoshiwara Red Light District, where she was one of the highest ranking courtesans. As for her powers, Daki's blood demon art allows her to create sashes from her flesh, which she can manipulate however she likes. Aside from their use in fight, these sashes have multiple functions. Not only can they store humans, but Daki can also make them have a will of their own, which she uses to fight and communicate over long distances. Daki can even turn her own neck into a sash to avoid getting cut in half. But how does becoming a cloth help with that? Because Daki's sash is as smooth as silk, which, if not sliced fast, can get wrapped around the sword. This move saved Daki's life multiple times during his fight with Tanjiro. The only way to slice off her neck is with Uzui or Zenitsu's instantly fast slash. But in Uzui's case, even though he sliced off Daki's head, it didn't kill her. Why? Because in order to kill Daki, you also have to kill his brother Gyutaro at the same time. And you might be wondering where in the world this brother is. Well, he was inside his sister. I mean, Gyutaro hid himself inside his sister without bringing any change in Daki's physical mass. And the reason Daki got soloed hard by Uzui is because she only gets stronger when she implants Gyutaro's core on her forehead. This makes Daki insanely strong as compared to before. Not only she becomes strong enough to hold off Zenitsu, Inosuke, and Uzui's wife with just her sash, but this also lets Gyutaro hear and sense everything Daki does. The core takes the form of Gyutaro's right eye, and also allows Gyutaro to control her sister in order to coordinate their attacks effectively. But why give your core to your sister? Well, simply because Gyutaro is strong even without his core. If you don't believe me, then let me tell you that Gyutaro was able to easily overwhelm both Tanjiro and Uzui at the same time. Gyutaro's blood demon art allows him to control his own blood in different ways, which sounds like a simple ability, but sometimes simplicity is all you need. Because in his fight against Uzui, Gyutaro used his blood to create sickle-shaped projectiles. Thanks to his insane regeneration, Gyutaro can create a very large number of these projectiles without even thinking about blood loss. He would often attack Uzui's blind spots with the help of these projectiles. But it doesn't stop here. Because Gyutaro can create these projectiles in a very large number, he was able to hold off Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke, all while fighting the sound Hashira at the same time. To make things more spicy, Gyutaro has the ability to generate extremely deadly poison, which he uses to coat his blood sickles. To give you an idea of how strong this poison is, Uzui, who has developed a high tolerance to poison from his shinobi training, was greatly affected by this poison. Things got so bad that Uzui literally stopped his heart to prevent the poison from spreading. But even that didn't help, because after the fight ended, he couldn't even speak properly because of the poison and decided to say his final words. Even Inosuke, who had natural poison resistance, was moments away from his death. And Tanjiro, who had no poison resistance whatsoever, was struggling to breathe properly. Which means that Gyutaro, with just his poison, was able to kill 3 demon slayers, including a Hashira. Now, that would be true if it wasn't for Nezuko. Thanks to her blood art, Nezuko was able to burn all the poison present in everyone's body, while on the other hand, Daki and Gyutaro were spending their final moments before turning to ash. They would start fighting and blamed each other for their deaths. Gyutaro went as far as to tell Daki that things would have been great if she wasn't born. But Tanjiro, who was watching the two siblings fight, smelled Gyutaro's lie and told them to get along in their final moments, as they won't get another chance to do so. We then see both Daki and Gyutaro, where Daki, despite hating his brother, follows him to hell. Next at number 6, we have Upper Moon Gyokko. This demon's quite unique because unlike the other demons who kill demon slayers by slicing them into pieces, Gyokko takes a different approach. To give you an example, he trapped Muichiro in a water prison that is shaped like a vase. This water was also very special. It was so dense and elastic that Muichiro wasn't able to pierce it with his sword. Along with that, because he was trapped in water, means he cannot breathe. And obviously, if you can't breathe, you can't use any breathing techniques. It got so bad that Muichiro decided to accept his death. The only reason Muichiro broke out of the prison was thanks to Kotetsu. He breathed into the water prison, which gave Muichiro enough air to use his mist breathing and get out of that prison. Another interesting thing is that Gyokko has different vases, and each one unleashes a different blood demon art. But that's not their only purpose, because Gyokko can also use these vases to play whack-the-mole with his opponents. The moment you attack this guy, you'll move to another vase to dodge your attack. And while you can destroy those pots to cut off Gyokko's escape routes, he can always make more of them out of his flesh. Moreover, just like Gyutaro, Gyokko also uses poison to deal with his enemies. And while this poison isn't as deadly as Gyutaro's, it's certainly enough to paralyze his opponent. One more thing that separates Gyokko from the rest of the Upper Moon is his true form. While all the Upper Moons have the body of a human, Gyokko's true form allows him to become a merman. In this form, anything Gyokko touches turns into a fish. The increase in speed Gyokko gets is also insane. The scales on his body also make his body smooth, which means he can move through air with less resistance. This form also gives him a tough body and makes him harder than Diamond. However, after unlocking the Demon Slayer mark, Muichiro played with Gyokko. With his 7th form of mist breathing, Muichiro became insanely fast even for someone like Gyokko, and sliced off his head. And while Gyokko tried regenerating his head, there was no way Muichiro was going to let him do that. He stood in front of Gyokko, the self-proclaimed superior being, who was now in a very pathetic state, and chopped his fish brain into several pieces to end his life. At number 5, we have Upper Moon 4 Hantengu. Upper Moon 4 is somewhat similar to the Upper Moon 6 in a sense that it also shares his position with other demons. But unlike Gyutaro, who shared the position of Upper Moon 6 with his sister Hantengu, shares this position with his 6 clones. He pulls this off by manifesting his emotion into an independent demon. First is Hantengu himself, who represents the emotion of fear. One might think that Hantengu's real form is the most useless, and they wouldn't be entirely wrong, since all Hantengu does is hide in fear from his enemies. A few questions might be popping in your head, like how does he attack his opponents? Why does he hide himself in fear? How the heck this guy is an Upper Moon? Well, let's answer these questions one by one. The thing is, as long as his clones are alive, Hantengu doesn't need to kill his enemies, because that's the job for the rest of the clones. As for why he hides himself in fear, it's because if Hantengu dies, it's game over for them. This might seem similar to the rest of the demons, but there's a catch. Yes, just like Daki and Gyutaro, beheading the clones won't kill them, since Hantengu can always recreate them. This technique right there makes Hantengu one of the most dangerous Upper Moon in the arsenal. To answer why Hantengu is an Upper Moon, we have to talk about these clones. First on our list is Kaigaku. Kaigaku is the manifestation of Hantengu's pleasure, who uses a leaf-shaped fan created from his flesh. This fan is no joke. A single swing of this fan sent Muichiro to another side of the map, where Muichiro spent the rest of his time fighting Upper Moon 5 Gyokko. The second one on our list is Izetsu, who's the manifestation of Saru. Izetsu's blood demon art allows him to create spurs out of his flesh. Apart from being an expert at wielding a spear, he can shoot multiple projectiles by thrusting his spear to stab his enemies at long range. The third clone is Urogi, who is a manifestation of Hantengu's joy, and he's the only manifestation who can fly. His build is similar to that of an eagle, and just like an eagle, he can carry his opponents over long distances. However, unlike an eagle, Urogi's blood demon art allows him to create extremely powerful sound waves from his mouth. These waves are also strong enough to cause temporary deafness. But Urogi can take its power to the next level by creating a sonic scream. Taking the sonic scream head-on temporarily knocked out Tanjiro, and he started bleeding from his nose and ear. Next on the list is Sekido. This guy is the manifestation of Hantengu's anger and acts as the leader in Hantengu's place. His blood demon art allows him to create bolts of lightning that can immobilize his opponents. Since this lightning has a large area of effect, Sekido can attack multiple opponents with his blood demon art. Now, I mentioned that Sekido acts as a leader, and to prove that he's not just a leader in name, let me tell you what Sekido is truly capable of. When Sekido senses that the real form Hantengu is in danger, he can forcefully summon and absorb Kaigaku, Izetsu, and Urogi. This return gives birth to the fifth clone, Zuhakuten, who's manifested as Hantengu's hatred. This is the most powerful form of Hantengu. He can use the blood demon arts of previous clones far better than them. For example, the lightning attack he unleashes has a massive range, and as far as the sonic scream, it literally knocked Mitsuri unconscious, giving Zuhakuten enough time to throw a deadly punch at her. And no joke, that punch would have ended her life if she didn't get saved by Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Genya, who risked their lives to protect her. Zuhakuten can also create wooden dragons that are capable of using the blood demon arts of Sekido, Kaigaku, and Urogi, which means he can attack his opponents even if they are far away from him. Although this much is enough to show why Hantengu is an Upper Moon, there's one more clone whose whole job is to protect Hantengu. I'm talking about Urami, who is the manifestation of Hantengu's resentment. We don't know much about his blood demon art, however at one point he used Urogi's powerful sound waves to stun both Genya and Tanjiro. After realizing that the sun is about to rise, Hantengu uses his wild card Urami to escape from the demon slayers. And this escape, if successful, would have been the best villain escape in anime history. To avoid being seen by the demon slayers, Hantengu hid inside Urami's heart for two main reasons. First, it kept him safe from getting cooked in sunlight, Second, while Arami's on the run, he could eat nearby humans to help Hantengu recover his strength. This almost saved Hantengu's life, but thanks to Tanjiro's broken smelling sense, he was able to sniff out Hantengu and finish him once and for all. Hantengu was replaced by another demon after his death, and even though she doesn't have the most scream out of all the upper moons, no one can forget about Biwa Woman, who has the power to manipulate Muzan's castle. But before that, let me warn you that everything beyond this point is a spoiler. Because at number 4, we have Nakime. If Muzan had won against the Demon Slayers, then Nakime would have been the MVP of the fight. Some might think it's a bold claim, but in order to prove my point, let me remind you how the Demon Slayers started their fight against Muzan. Before the fight started, Tamayo used the blood art of a different demon to immobilize Muzan. This not only allowed her to use anti-Muzan drug on him, but also gave the Hashira a chance to simultaneously attack Muzan. But guess what happens before their swords reach Muzan? Nakime uses her blood art to transport all of them into the Infinity Castle. That's not her only notable feat, because if you remember, the drug Tamayo gave to Muzan severely weakened him, to the point that he had to recover in a cocoon. And the only upper moon who helped Muzan do that in peace was Nakime. Not only did she separate the Demon Slayers from each other, she also sent each of them to an upper moon, making it difficult for them to find Muzan. Along with that, she single-handedly kept Obanai and Mitsuri completely busy single-handedly. And guess who found Muzan when he recovered from the effects of the drugs? The low-ranked Demon Slayers. I mean, it's not a coincidence that the only people who found Muzan were the weaker ones that could help Muzan regain his power. Nakime was also the last surviving upper moon, and she wasn't even killed by a Demon Slayer. Yep, it was actually Muzan who killed Nakime. The reason behind that was Yushiro joined the fight with Mitsuri and Obanai, and somehow managed to sneak behind Nakime. After that, with the help of his blood demon art, he was able to take control of Nakime's vision. Muzan, who was relying on Nakime's vision for information, saw the death of Mitsuri and Obanai. However, that was a fake image created by Yushiro. This allowed Obanai and Mitsuri to catch Muzan off guard while he was busy fighting Tanjiro and Giyu. When Muzan realized what happened, he tried to regain control over Nakime, but Yushiro wasn't going to let Muzan have this win. Eventually, Muzan failed to take control over Nakime and decided to kill her. So basically, she was killed by the very being who turned her into a monster. We have only 3 upper moon remaining. At number 3, we have Akaza. Akaza is what I would like to call a good demon, which sounds quite contradictory, but let me explain what I mean by that. Akaza was a slumdog who pickpocketed from people in town in order to pay for his father's medicine. The judge, due to his multiple offenses, arrested him and even called him a demon child. It didn't bother Akaza in the slightest. Instead, he actually adopted that name. Although it didn't matter to Akaza, his sick father took it to heart and hung himself. Losing his home and father in a single night, Akaza went bonkers. He started picking fights with random people and nearly killed 7 adult men in the village. While he was on his rampage, he met Keizu, the owner of Soryu Dojo, who smacked Akaza hard enough to bring him back to his senses. Impressed by Akaza's strength, Keizu took him under his wing and tasked him with taking care of his sick daughter. Now, this wasn't anything new to Akaza, as he already took great care of his sick father, so he didn't have any problems with that. 2 years passed by and things went smoothly for Akaza. He was learning martial arts under his master Keizo, and Koyuki, who couldn't stand up without anyone's help, was now able to do chores. One day, Keizo offered Akaza to take over the dojo and even told him to take Koyuki as his bride. Akaza couldn't believe this. He was further surprised when Koyuki also accepted Akaza's past. He also thought of him as a demon child, a child with a dark past who is now seeing a bright future ahead of him. So he went to his father's grave to inform him about this good news, but Akaza, who was ready to start a new chapter in his life, had zero idea what he was about to face. On his way back, Akaza got informed that a rival dojo, who would often cause problems for Soryu Dojo, had poisoned the well. Kaizu and Koyuki, just like every other day, drank from that well, which shortly caused their death. To avenge his master and soon-to-be bride Kiyoki, Akaza went to the rival dojo and killed all 67 members of the dojo with his bare hands. The damage was so bad that it was difficult to recognize the corpses. Right after that incident, Akaza came across Muzan, who offered him to become a demon. Since Akaza had lost everything in his life, he accepted Muzan's offer and became a demon. He didn't become your regular demon. He became one of the 12 moons and climbed the ranks to eventually become the 3rd upper moon. And according to Doma, the only reason Akaza didn't climb higher in demon ranks is because he refused to eat women. Despite that, Akaza had always been a menace, and his insane fighting skills also transferred to his demon form. His blood demon art, Destructive Death, combined Soryu style with the destructive shockwaves. Not only he could launch these shockwaves from a long distance like a cannon, but they were also very deadly in close range. Kyojuro tried to tank these shockwaves one after another, but even with Kyojuro's insane defenses, Akaza smashed both his ribs and internal organs. Akaza's blood demon art also included the compass needle technique. This technique allowed Akaza to sense and predict everything about his opponent. And by that, I mean everything. He could sense their strength, their next moves, and even their exact location in case they're going for his blind spot. The way it works is by detecting someone's battle spirit, which means the stronger the battle spirit, the stronger the compass detection. Now, despite being the most deadly upper moon who loved fighting to the point he would offer countless Hashira to become a demon so that they could fight eternally, Akaza's final moments were different. In his final fight against Tanjiro and Giyu, Tanjiro managed to completely hide his battle spirit, which was the turning point of the battle, because hiding your battle spirit is the only way to counter Akaza's compass needle. And because Tanjiro had 0 battle spirit, Akaza wasn't able to detect Tanjiro's attack. And this turn allowed Tanjiro to slice off Akaza's head. Even without his head, Akaza continued using his technique and knocked Tanjiro unconscious. But while he was going to finish both Giyu and Tanjiro, something stopped him. It was his late fiancée, Kyoki. Akaza, who lost his memories, was hallucinating about her. He remembered about his dead father, his dead teacher, and his dead fiancé. He remembered his tragic past, a tragic past which also had the best years of his life. The 2 years he spent taking care of Kyoki finally made him remember his humanity. And guess what happens after that? He unleashed his blood demon art, but this time, this skill wasn't meant to kill humans, but Akaza himself. Yes, Akaza used his skill on himself and destroyed his body. Muzan's blood flowing through Akaza forced him to regenerate, but that blood wasn't stronger than the memories of his beloved Kyoki. Akaza decided not to regenerate and finally left the world with a smile. But if Akaza is the demon who never ate women, then the next demon on this list is someone who has only eaten women. At number 2, we have Doma. The reason Doma only ate women is they're nutritious, and eating lots of them makes one stronger. In fact, he takes it so seriously that he was very sad when he didn't get to eat Shinobu's sister Kanao because of the sunrise. The result of eating women is his insanely strong blood demon art that gives him ice powers. The ice created from his blood art is extremely deadly to anyone who inhales it because it can slowly kill the lung cells of the opponent. The idea is similar to Gyokko's water prison, but instead of cutting off the air supply at once, Doma's ice gradually makes the opponent unable to breathe quickly. If breathing in this ice can do this much, what about actually coming in contact with Doma? Well, it can freeze your body to the point that Kanai wasn't able to slice off Doma's head because her arm froze in place. Doma can also make ice clones with his blood demon art. These ice clones use the same techniques as him and can easily overpower both Kanai and Inosuke. The techniques I mentioned just now are used by Doma, who's not serious. As for when he does get serious, he creates a giant Buddha statue. This Buddha statue releases huge blows of Doma's deadly ice. It also has giant hands and can not only squash Doma's enemies like mosquitoes, but also capture them by grabbing them with one of his hands. In short, it is the ultimate weapon in Doma's arsenal. Now, before I tell you how to defeat this monster, there's one small detail that I'm sure you aren't aware of. Trust me, it'll make you appreciate Doma's ability more than you already do. Because thanks to Doma's deadly ice abilities, it's impossible to unlock the Demon Slayer mark. Why? Because one of the requirements to achieve this mark is to have a body temperature of over 102 Fahrenheit, which is impossible to achieve when your lungs are freezing because of the cold air. This makes fighting Doma even harder than fighting Upper Moon 1, since you will never unlock that superhuman strength. So how do you defeat this monster? By simply letting him eat Shinobu. From the information left by her sister, Shinobu knew that Doma loves to eat a female Hashira, which is why in order to kill your sister's murderer, she absorbed absorbed highly concentrated wisteria-based poison for a whole year. The process was so thorough that Doma wasn't able to detect it even after eating Shinobu. For comparison, Shinobu's usual dose of poison she injects with her sword is around 500 milligrams. For my US audience, that comes to around 81 pounds, which is 700 times more than the actual amount used to kill a regular demon. This high dose melted Doma's face so bad that one of his eyes popped out of the socket, which means all Kanai and Inosuke was to do was to slice off Doma's melting head. But that wasn't easy, because to save his pathetic life, Doma unleashed his giant Buddha statue, which, despite lacking precision, packed enough power to hold 2 demon slayers. However, thanks to Kanai's final form of flower breathing, which enhances her vision at the cost of her eyesight, Kanai was able to slip past the Buddha and attack Doma's neck. And even though she swung her sword at Doma's neck, she wasn't able to slice through it because her arms instantly froze after coming in contact with Doma. But don't worry, because we have the best boy, Inosuke. My guy literally threw his 2 swords that pushed Kanai's swords straight through Doma's head and eventually ended Doma's career. Finally, we have Upper Moon 1. Kokushibo is the first demon slayer to ever become a demon, and he was also the one who turned Kaigaku into a demon. But why would a demon slayer, whose whole job is to slay the demons, become a demon? In Kokushibo's case, he wanted to be like his brother. His brother, Yoriichi, was always a better swordsman than Kokushibo. Even after joining the Demon Slayer Corps, it was his brother, Yoriichi, who taught everyone a modified version of sun breathing. This not only gave birth to different kinds of breathing techniques, but also caused Demon Slayer marks to appear on the rest of the Demon Slayers. This mark eventually appeared on Kokushibo as well, however, he wasn't able to use the sun breathing. Instead, he used a modified version which he named Moon Breathing. Even though the appearance of a Demon Slayer mark is considered a good sign, the bearer of this mark usually dies before the age of 25, and that is exactly what Kokushibo feared the most. He wanted to perfect his techniques. He wanted to become stronger and finally surpass his brother. And that was exactly what Muzan appeared in front of him. He offered everything Kokushibo needed to surpass his brother. Kokushibo accepted the offer, and for 60 years he trained to become stronger than his brother. But all of that sacrifice was for nothing, because after 60 years, he met his brother Yoriichi, who is now over 80 years old. This meeting surprised the hell out of Kokushibo. Not only Yoriichi didn't die before age 25, but despite being so old, Yoriichi's technique had the exact same power and speed from when he was in his prime. That was a hard slap on Kokushibo's face, who gave up his humanity but couldn't surpass one old man. One swing was all it took to make Kokushibo fear for his life. Kokushibo knew that Yoriichi's next attack would be the last thing he'd see in his life. However, that attack never came, because Yoriichi died of a natural death from old age. Now, he obviously couldn't return to being a human, which is why he kept living as a demon and became the strongest upper moon out of the 12 Kizuki. The reason I'm saying this is that it actually took 3 proper Hashira and Genya to take this beast down. This is because Kokushibo has 2 things going for him. The first one is obviously his demon abilities. As for the second one, it's his moon breathing combined with his blood demon art. His demon abilities allow him to create sharp swords from his body. This not only gives Kokushibo a never-ending supply of swords, but he can also use it to defend himself, which is why when Muichiro invaded his personal space and stabbed him in the stomach, Kokushibo grew countless swords out of his body to slice Muichiro and Genya in half. As for his blood demon art, it allows him to create and manipulate dozens of sharp crescent-shaped blades from his flesh katana. These crescent moon blades have no set rhythm. They are always changing in shape, size, direction, and even speed. This makes Kokushibo's attacks extremely unpredictable, which is why Muichiro faced this technique for the first time. He immediately lost his hand. What makes it more deadly is he can create these crescent-shaped blades without swinging his sword, which makes this attack so unpredictable that even Sanmei believes he wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for his experience in the field of demon hunting. There are 2 more things that are worth mentioning. First is his raw aura that can not only shut down Upper Moon 3, but also cause someone as cool as Muichiro to lose the will to fight. Next is his insane regeneration, because even if you slice off his head, Kokushibo can always regenerate it. Now, I know this sounds normal since we know Akaza could also do that, but the difference is Kokushibo regenerated his head while he was stabbed with a bright red sword. And in case you forgot, bright red sword is known for messing with regeneration, but Kokushibo Muichiro, despite having a sword in his stomach, regenerated his head completely. He even tried to regenerate the second time, but he lost his head. But the area where Muichiro stabbed him started crumbling like old leaves, which finally brought the end to the second most deadly fight in Demon Slayer.